How's it going, everyone? It is Prashan here, and I have Tuccrr with me. We're doing the top decks this week of Marvel Snap. So, shout out to you guys with all the good reception last week. I think we did well. I think we'll continue to do this as long as you guys watch. Anything you want to say to the people out there, Tuccrr?
Yeah, once again, just thank you guys so much for all the positive feedback. That was our first run, a little pilot run, you could say, and I think we did pretty good, and it's just going to get better going forward.
Right. That was the alpha. Now we're in the beta. So, we're gonna start off with well, hang on. Shout out to Power On Gaming. You guys see it in the corner there. We're both a part of the Power On Game squad. So I had to say that before we start, before we get fired by STG. So we have Sasquatch here. What are your thoughts on Sasquatch? This was the newest card this week.
So I think it was a little bit overhyped, I would say, but it's still performing pretty well. I mean, you're seeing a lot more different packages with Sasquatch. You've seen a lot of Mysterio with Mockingbird kind of thing. It's going to be interesting to see where this card falls, but I thought it was a good card. Nothing crazy, but a good card.
Right. I feel the same way, but I tried to make a deck that countered Sasquatch, and I made a YouTube video, and the whole time I was playing for like 2 hours, I did not see one Sasquatch played. So I felt so bad. By the end of the video, I was like, sorry, we did not catch one. Because I played Mobius in my deck just to stop all the Mockingbird Sasquatch shenanigans. But I was playing against Destroy like every single game. It was so weird. I was like, why is there this weird Destroy meta? But enough of that. Enough of the Squatchy here. We're going to go over some of the top decks this week in Marvel Snap. And the first one we have here is a good old discard deck.
Yeah, and with classic discard, it's really interesting. So, like, since Leech got changed with the OTA, you're seeing a lot more unrevealed cards, and Leech literally countered this like entire list on Curve, which is why one of the main reasons why this card list is just back, and like it still goes vertical. You're not seeing a lot of Shadow King. You're still not seeing a lot of Shang-Chi. So you're able just to discard everything, and like Prashant was saying too, like you're seeing people play Mobius, but you're not seeing it all the time. So you can still get your swarms out and everything. It just feels good.
Yeah, this is one of those decks that will always be around, right? One of the ones you could go back to whenever you need some wins. Especially since the change with Leech, like a lot of freedom is being played whatever card list you want to play right now. And then everyone's on the offensive too, so you don't see that much Shang-Chi. There's not that much Shadow King. People want to go for beefier stats when they're playing compared to counter everything, except for, of course, Sarah, the Sarah deck that we covered last week. That stops all. But yeah, good old discard. Definitely a staple in Marvel Snap if you need to play some discard. So the next deck we're gonna go into is good old Shuri Slam, another go-to deck that keeps on creeping up in the meta and whenever you need some wins.
Yeah, and like the thing about this list is we're seeing a lot of Hela right now, and you need some sort of list to go vertical with Hela. And that's what like Shuri Sauron does. And we have some different lines here with Scar as well, in case you don't get your perfect top end. So you're able to play some of these other cards out on curve. But like your main thing is like there's no Shang-Chi, so you're not really worried about your cards in Shang-Chi. Yes, there's Cannonball, but as long as you're not filling lanes, you're normally only playing a couple cards a turn anyways with this list. Cannonball really doesn't hurt you. Only thing that would really hurt you is like a Professor X, but like not everyone's even running the Professor X package anymore. I think like Prashant was saying earlier, the meta's kind of all over the place. So everyone's trying out all sorts of different things, so it's not just the same list every single game.
Right, and especially with Leech too. Leech being gone, it opens up everything. And then with the cards too not being that great, to be honest, it allows people to just play whatever they want because it's not like these new cards are meta defining or changing the meta. Except for one, and I would say that is Blink, and I have a Blink deck for you here. This is a Blink deck that is pretty much a 60% win rate, pretty high. It's pretty sneaky here because you have Quake, you have Nocturne. I think mostly this deck was built for Cancun for the most
Mm.
part, just to get those sneaky, tricky wins. But it still works without Cancun, especially with like White Widow being something that could clog up lanes. It still has Leech. You can still get Leech off too on a turn 5 if you need to. And then you can even play Blink on turn 6. A Blink on turn 6 instead of playing it on turn 5. That way you could get that Red Hulk or Magneto. And then Magneto moves everything over. So it's a lot of cool, like tricky stuff with this deck. You just have to read and react for the most part, just like any other deck with Marvel Snap. What do you think about this deck here?
Yeah, I think like the coolest thing about this is there's a lot of tech. You got a lot of tech that can really change the turn of the game, like the Quake being able to play late game, and then Jubilee getting some of your top end out, and then blinking Jubilee out, like what you're saying, is so good. Because if you can get a leech out on 4 with Jubilee, and then you just blink out Jubilee with blink on 5, you're getting so much extra, not just power stats, but like also abilities, like in that situation too. So like Blink's been just such a great season pass card. I don't think ridiculously OP by any means. I think just like Hope Summers, they're just great cards. Maybe they tweak their power a little bit, but I don't really think you need to mess with their ability because they just are good cards.
Right. And this season, what card do you think is the best this season?
So at first I was thinking, I think Blink is really solid, but I think Sage might be the best card of the season. I think just how over the top you can get with Sage, bouncing her out again, like power you have to account for, and you forget about Sage. I forget about Sage all the time, and I have a bunch of different powered cards in my lanes, and then Sage gets to up to 14 power, and I'm sitting there like, oh, I thought I actually won this game. And then like the Ravonna interaction, it's just crazy.
Yeah, I think Sage for sure is one of those sneaky cards where it's like before she came out, you're like, what? Like, why do I need this card? Like, I don't think she could get that big. And then, like, you lose to it all the time. You're like, why didn't I get Sage? Because she could just sneak up to you. You don't know. As an opponent, you can't account for Sage. Like, you can't be like, oh, she's going to be like 3 power, or 4 power, or 5 power in this lane. Like, it's just a surprise to you, whatever she is, whenever she comes on the board, which makes her so great. And especially, like, in bounce, too. Like, that. Like, that's amazing what you can do. So, the next deck we're going to have here is good old Namora here. So, this is one deck that has been sneaking up that is actually pretty solid if you don't get that Namora play. I've seen some decks play Colossus and Namora decks, which is pretty cheeky as well because Colossus, he can't have his power reduced. And he can't be destroyed. So Namora and Colossus goes pretty good together, just in case you don't have like White Widow, because I know a lot of people don't have White Widow and they always ask. And then you have your typical old school Wombo combo here with White Tiger, Doom, and then Odin. And then you have Iron Lad here to sneak some of that stuff out early. So pretty solid list, I think. What do you think of it?
I honestly really like this list. So it reminds me of literally the Honor Reveal list before Namora was just this like exact list without the Series 5 cards. And it's still won games because of like you have the alternate lines like you're talking about. Maybe you're sending out 8 powered Tigers, or maybe you're sending out 2 sets of Doombots. Like it just really can go horizontal, and then now with Namora, it adds the flex to just go super vertical, which I really like. I think you can steal cubes with this, and your opponent always has to guess: do they have Odin? Do they have this? Do they have that? Because at the same time, Ironheart can like steal you games. Of course, it's way more RNG, but she can totally steal you games.
Yeah, this is definitely a semi RNG deck, but it can be sneaky, and it's sort of like old school too. Like when you're first playing Marvel Snap, like that Wong, Odin, White Tiger combo is one of the first combos that you learn when you're in first playing Marvel Snap. So it's like old mixed with the new, which I like. And then what do you think about Namora? What are your thoughts on this card?
So I think this is a good card. Like at worst, she doesn't have any cards. She's a 5/6. At like second worst, I mean like not best, but like 5/11. Only downside is a card has to be by itself. And then if it hits 2 cards, it's a 5/16. That's better than Miss Marvel at a 4/14. 14. So like it just feels good. It's kind of like you have to play around this a little bit, and like with how popular Professor X is right now, there's some Professor X value too. I think it's a good card.
Yeah, for sure. I think she's good. I was sort of skeptical before she came out, just because the way it read, and then the rest of the cards that need to be by themselves in a lane aren't that good, like
Mm-hmm.
Orca and Namor. So Namora actually is like a good, I guess, play line or good text compared to the other like sea creature people. So I think
Mm-hmm.
she's okay. I tried to put her in a Nimrod deck. I actually made a
Mm-hmm.
video on it, but I haven't put it out because I didn't
Mm-hmm.
really think it was that great. But I think I'm gonna go back and revisit it because I think there's something there.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that I just have to tweak it a little bit more. So let's go into our next deck here. We have some Super Tribunal. This
Mm-hmm.
one is pretty interesting. I made a video on that today. I put it out. So you have many different ways to win the game here. So of course you have your old school way of going Invisible Woman, Modoc, and then Hela, or you could go Magic and then you play Supergiant on turn 5, and then you play Hela on turn 6, and then on turn 7 you play Modoc. So that's another way you could just steal cubes and games from the opponent. Or you could just, if you think you could just outpower and prolong the game, you just go Magic, Iron Man, Onslaught, Living Tribunal, and hopefully you could win the game that way. So pretty interesting way to play Tribunal. I know that's been popping up a lot, especially since Leech not being available right now.
Mm-hmm.
So this has been creeping up just for those easy wins, and it keeps up with all the other big power decks as well.
Yeah, I think this is a solid list, and I think like the alternate lines you're saying, the Invisible Woman or the Supergiant interaction, I like that. You could also, if you wanted to, just use Supergiant on 4. If you can kind of see what your opponent's playing, just to turn off a turn 5 play. Of course, your main line is like getting the Modoc into Hela. But like I like the different layers of tech you have in this list, and like having an Iron Lad or just Tribunal always feels good, because even if you don't have the Hela line, you can just play the Tribunal line and normally just pump out cubes that way too.
Right, and then Ika had a deck last week that he put out that utilized Supergiant too. So like Supergiant is a card I feel that is underrated at times. It could
Hmm.
definitely, like you said, it could stop combos from being played by the opponent sometimes, and they just retreat because you just messed up their whole game plan. I've seen it where I played a Shuri. Well, they played a Shuri on 4. I played Supergiant on 4, and then they couldn't do what they needed to do because, of course, they were going to play a big card, maybe Red Skull on 5, and then Taskmaster. But that
Hmm.
completely gives, like, that play is thrown out just based off of that. So Supergiant, I think the value on her is gonna rise in the future, and
Hmm.
I'm interested to see what other decks come about with Supergiant.
Yeah, she's a very underused card, because I think there you have to really think about your combo, and it's really kind of situational too. But I've enjoyed her.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think you definitely have to be careful of your order,
Hmm.
especially when you're trying to do like the Absorbing Man, Doctor Doom type of combos too. You just have to be wary of what when you play and how you play things.
For sure.
And lastly, here we got some good old lockdown. So this is a deck list that's not going anywhere. Lockdown, the good old Professor X Cannonball combo, and then of course you have Hope Summers to cheat out cards early or more lockdown like Professor X. You have Ravona to cheat out Professor X early. White Widow to clog up lanes. You have Angela, and then of course Kitty Pryde is the engine for Angela and Hope. And like we talked about earlier, we have Sage, the surprise card, just to slam more power on the board. So lockdown isn't going away. Cannonball stonks are going up high. And yeah, what are your thinks? Or thinks? What are your thoughts on this deck?
This list is really solid, and like what you said, you have a bunch of different ways to pump out power, pump onto your Hope Summers. Ravona hits a large variety of cards in this list. I think she hits 5 or 6 different cards. Angela, Goblin, Sage, Wolfsbane, Professor X. So she gets 5 out of the other 11 remaining cards, which is really solid.
Yeah.
And then like you're just putting negative power everywhere, and you're locking in negative power. So it just feels good. You hate playing against it, but it's a good list. The Professor X and the Cannonball combo isn't going anywhere unless they like change Professor X's ability. Because even if they were to like nerf Cannonball by 2 power, he still does the same thing. I think at 5/6 makes more sense. But this card was so underrated, flew under the radar, and now it is everywhere, and everyone hates playing against it. So it's actually very fun to see how it turned out.
Oh yeah,
the way it did.
For sure. It's a card you definitely don't want to have priority for. So you
Mhm.
definitely have to be wary of like your turns and like how much power you're actually putting on the board at times because you don't want to whiff on that final turn. But no one's playing Shang-Chi either,
Mhm.
so I don't know. But yeah, lockdown is not going away. Like I think it's here to stay, especially with everyone trying to go big and tall. Like you definitely need one lane where you could just like set it and forget it and just focus on another lane. That way you can win games, and lockdown is definitely the deck. So these are the decks that we have this week. Is there anything you want to say to the people this week, Tucker? Or anything else you want to mention?
Um, Good luck on your weekend missions as well. I think it's going to be probably an easier week for weekend missions. With the Sasquatch stuff, just play what you're comfortable with. Good luck with all this Infinity Conquest, as well. And yeah, definitely make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe after watching the video. We
Yeah,
really appreciate that.
yeah, yeah. What are you playing in Conquest? Are you playing Conquest right now?
I'm only playing Conquest right now to fill out the rest of my medals, and I'm playing a Toxic High-Evo list that really is surprising people because no one's really playing High-Evo right now, so you really get the jump on them.
Yeah, it's weird. High Evo's like disappeared for some odd reason. I don't know
Hmm.
why. Like it seems like it was High Evo was here when Pixie was around, and
Hmm.
then like Pixie sort of like died off a little bit. So like you didn't see High Evo, and then we had the Hella meta, and then everyone just stuck to it. So yeah, that's it for this week. Make sure you like, subscribe, all that good stuff. I'll put the links down below for all these decks. That way you guys can try them out for yourselves. And then make sure that you guys give Tucker a follow as well. I'll put his info down as well. He plays on Twitch a lot. I play on YouTube a lot. So there we go. Till next time, guys. Be safe. Keep on snapping. And peace.